Speaking of images, I love drawing these comics because they're dealing very literally with the image of the Jew. Few other groups have been as focused on their collective self-image as are modern Jews. And for most of Jewish history, actually, the image of the Jew was defined by people who hated Jews. And eventually, many Jews internalized this hatred and saw themselves through this light. I have several of these, but we don't have like 6 hours here, so we're just going to run through them very quickly. I do want to show you the bees, though, because I find them to be adorable. Someone drew Jewish bees, and I think they're cute, but here, aren't they cute little bees? I like those bees, but whatever. I think that should be a movie, but anyway. And then in the last century, a group of Jews decided it was time to seize Jewish destiny and remake the image of the Jew. Is it a safe space here to talk about Zionism? I hope so, because we're going to. Yeah, that's cool. I'm actually fascinated by Zionism because no other Jewish movement is as focused on the body. And as an artist, someone who draws faces and bodies, I love the focus on form that Zionism represents. This is from a Zionist gymnastics journal from 1904. Zionism would raise new generations of strong, agrarian, revolutionary, mustachioed Jews. The other fun thing about Zionism is it takes itself rather seriously, so it makes it fun. Actually, it's not limited to male imagery. In 1970, Playboy ran a spread on the girls of Israel.
Oh no. Oh my
Talking
God.
about the superbly feminine beauties who grace this land of milk and honeys. And it says, the Israeli girl today is a totally new kind of woman, one still in the process of being created, almost without any ties to her past. As if that's a good thing. By the way, just so you know, and I know you want to know, I did not masturbate to these pictures. No, it's important, actually. It's about Jewish diaspora pride. If that was a tutorial on the Jewish girls of San Diego, I would have jerked off. Thank you. It's about choices you make. Anyway, for early Zionist thinkers, a new Jew could not emerge without a serious repudiation of the contemporary Jew. Here's a poster from 1948 from Beitar, a right-wing Zionist group, and the text reads, "The last generation of slaves, the first generation of free men," showing boundaries of, showing boundaries of a greater Israel, including all of Jordan. Zionism is a very subtle movement. And by the way, when people say your comics should be more subtle, I'm drawing about Jews, I'm drawing about these things. There's no subtlety there, so. Anyway, when they repudiated contemporary Jewish life, they actually introduced a lot of anti-Semitic ideology into their beliefs. These images are from the turn of the century Art Nouveau Zionist artist Ephraim Moshe Lilien. He's great, actually. I love his stuff. His stuff was used as images for Zionist congresses in the early 20th century. But he tends to draw Jews in a certain way. Here you can see death waiting for them with a wave about to overtake them. Yeah, it's subtle. He drew his diaspora Jews as elderly, hunched over, crippled, and covered in barbed wire. No, seriously, barbed wire right there. Barbed wire, pyramids, symbolizing diaspora. So anyway, these images were not positive, but I wouldn't call them anti-Semitic either. To get to the anti-Semitism, you have to get to the Zionist writings. And that's where it got, frankly, putrid, if I may say so, without the ADL calling somebody. I'm sorry. So I'm going to read this to you. Just, play a little guessing game what it's from. The emancipated Jew is insecure in his relations with his fellow man, timid with strangers, and suspicious even of the secret feelings of his friends. He has become a cripple within and a counterfeit person without, so that like everything unreal, he is ridiculous and hateful to all men of high standards. That's actually not Mein Kampf, that's from Max Nordau, one of the founders of Zionism. Yeah. Anyway, generally they described diaspora as a pernicious condition that had raised generations of physically, spiritually, morally, and culturally crippled Jews. And this Nazi image of Aryans versus Jews could have been used with little alteration in the Zionist pamphlet about the new Jew versus the diaspora Jew. And to this day, Zionist thought, I believe, needs its foil. And the foil, I don't think, is the Palestinian. The foil is the Jew. I know, this is very preachy, I know. We promised you a service today, and so this is the sermon part, so you're going to have to bear with us for a little bit. And also, those books in my dad's bookshelf had a serious influence on me, so I enjoy the pontification. So you shouldn't have given me the mic, but here it goes. And we'll be done in about 3 hours, and then you can go home and watch Twilight. Anyway, the Holocaust only reinforced the view of hero versus victim, and it was no better expressed than in Nathan Rappaport's Warsaw Ghetto Monument. The front, which was modeled on actual kibbutzniks, who actually posed for Rappaport, featured the fighting Jews of the ghetto and of the future, coming out, bursting out of the actual stones of the monument. And only if you go around to the back do you see a much smaller bas relief, like as an afterthought, of the diaspora Jews huddled and heading to their slaughter. It was a deliberate reference to the destruction of Jerusalem we started off the show with, the Arch of Titus. And it showed a hero versus victim view of Jewish identity and history that is frankly more suitable to comic books than a national liberation movement. This is Mad Super Duper Man, of course. I find this stuff to be not only offensive but ridiculous. I find a simplification of Jewish history, and it refuses to acknowledge what to me is pretty clear, that some of the greatest accomplishments in Jewish history came out of the diaspora, and they came because of the diaspora, actually. And I'm not trying to discredit Israel. I know they created a cell phone, which I use, and so I'd like to just give them that. Thank you very much, Israel. Anyway, so I deal with this ridiculousness the best way I know how, by drawing comics. Some people say this is anti-Semitic, but it's actually Zionist. This is my Zionist comic. So anyway, this is my comic, Israel Man Diaspora Boy. What I basically did was draw the stuff I learned in Hebrew day school, summer camp, trips to Israel, you know, experience with emissaries. Actually, I don't know, people here know Hebrew?
Yeah.
Great. Because like 15 years of my youth, I thought the term shaliach was Hebrew for douchebag. I did not know. It's actually not. What it means is emissary or messenger. But you know, it's actually from the Bible. But I was just like, I had so many experiences with these people who were teaching me shit all over about how my home culture was crap and how my home wasn't even home. My only home was in Israel. You know, douchebags. And I was like, oh, you're a shaliach, so you're a douchebag. But then I learned actually it's like biblical and everything like that. So you know, the more you know. Anyway, what's interesting about this comic, aside from the fact that no Zionist understands it in the world, you know, I've been told, you know, I get accused of arguing ideological battles that disappeared in the 1950s because we're now one people, Klal Yisrael, yeah. It's interesting because the same people have read these articles. Don't legitimize diaspora, Israel's new president wants. That was, I think, maybe 2 years before he was kicked out of office for rape. I think that was it, right? It's subtle. Israeli writer, Jews in France, partial Jews. This is interesting, actually. Because they used to say diaspora Jews would die physically, but now that we're, at least in America, safer than Jews in Israel, they have to find another way to say it. So they say we'll die spiritually or demographically, or that we're incomplete outside Israel. Or that diaspora teens need to visit Israel in order to build Jewish pride, or have erect penises. Which is impossible to attain in, say, Michigan. No future for diaspora Jewry, says Netanyahu. Oh gosh, thanks. Here, take another $4 billion. Anyway, I should note that Israel today is thankfully not living out this preposterous ideology. It's moved beyond its founding myths, and you know there are issues, obviously, but it's not like living out the ideology that it started with. But Zionist intellectuals, and I'm using that term loosely because they're idiots,